Dr. Swansea is right. This place seems perfect to conduct my research. Good evening, nurse.
Good evening, Doctor. I don't think we've been introduced yet. My name is Pippa Hawkins.
And I'm Dr. Jonathan Reed. Dr. Swansea has recently offered me a position in this hospital.
Well, it's a euphemism that your help will be appreciated, Doctor.
How would you describe the situation at the Pembroke Hospital?
It's serious. The flu is wreaking havoc amongst the staff and patients. We are running out of everything.
Nurse Hawkins, the Spanish flu won't last forever. Even the Black Plague didn't kill everyone.
I wish I could believe you. But what if this epidemic was worse? What if in the end, nobody was spared?
You must get a hold of yourself, nurse.
Sorry, I'm exhausted. No one has any idea when this epidemic will be over.
How long have you been a nurse?
Well, long enough to see that the epidemic is winning. And no matter how qualified you are, don't tell me you'll change that.
You'd be surprised what dedication can achieve, Nurse Hawkins. In medicine, sometimes we're just a test result away from a miracle.
Sorry, Doctor. I don't want to sound bitter, but I'm just too tired to give a pep talk like Nurse Brannigan.
How is the Pembroke staff coping with the epidemic?
Well, not well. Milton, the ambulance driver, is even more grumpy than usual, especially concerning doctors.
Why is Milton grumpy on a daily basis? Is it just an act?
Milton's not the kind of man who's bothered about a bad reputation, whether he deserved it or not.
Why does Milton dislike doctors?
I don't know. Just ask him. But be warned, Milton is not the chatty type.
Goodbye, Nurse Hawkins. Good evening, sir. Can I help you?
Unless you're here to fix my face. No. I don't think you can help me.
I'm Dr. Reed. I've recently taken the position of head surgeon here. War injuries, am I right?
You guessed right, Doctor. German shell took my pretty little mug right off. But they still call me Thomas Elwood.
How is your stay with us, Mr. Elwood?
Oh, it's bliss. I just escaped death in the trenches to be surrounded again by the moans of the dying.
Can I ask you precisely why you're a patient here?
It's the pain, sir. The drugs don't work. It just hurts under the scars, if you get my drift.
Can I do anything for your pain?
Nurses gave me a bunch of pills. No effect. Told you. It's like the
Who is treating you?
Nobody since the old and tired doctor.
You don't seem worried by that.
My face hurts so much more when I smile or cry. I've learned it's easier not to speak. But be assured I'm smiling.
Where were you stationed?
I really don't want to talk.
No offense. I was pushing too much.
You were an officer, weren't you?
Goodbye for now. Good evening, miss. I'm Dr. Reed, the new surgeon at the...
Your name has no meaning to me, mortal. You're nothing but dust blown by the winds.
I beg your pardon?
What are you begging for, mortal? My clemency?
You keep calling me mortal. Why is that? And if I'm mortal, what are you?
Well, Dr. Reed, if you must know, I'm a vampire.
And why do you believe you're a vampire?
I don't need to believe anything. It is what I am. It is what I feel within this hollow shell of flesh.
Please, describe...
I can hear my body crumble from the inside as my flesh cracks and fades. I sense the last pulse of postulant blood within my drying veins. I need new blood.
I see. Have you ever heard of Cotard syndrome, Miss Howcroft?
Never.
It's a mental illness discovered by a French neurologist named Jules Cotard. The affected patients are delusional. They believe that they are putrefying, that they are dead, a ghost or a ghoul, or in your case, a vampire.
Delusional, you say? Oh, sad and petty mortal. You can't even begin to understand the concept of immortality. And you think it is I who am delusional.
I'm assuming you must be a patient here.
It's only a cover. To hide from my enemies. I can leave whenever I want. As a woman, a spirit,
Who are these enemies?
I cannot say for sure. But I sense their eyes on me from nearby. I feel them watching me every time I visit the garden.
The staff here are not your...
I'm not speaking of the doctors in white. I'm speaking of the men and women who hunt me. For I am a vampire.
I see. Don't worry.
Thank you, mortal. But do not interfere with them, for you are no match for those that hunt me.
Who are you really, Miss Howcroft?
Is that not enough for you, puny?
I'm curious to know who you were before.
No, it was such a long time ago, I don't remember.
I'll leave you, mistress of...
I wish I could be sick again. Here again. Blood boil with fever.
Good evening, Mr. Hampton. How do you feel?
Dr. Reed, is it? Oh,
What do you mean?
I was not myself in the factory. Fear and exhaustion made me say awful things to you.
You remained perfectly nice and polite.
Thank you, Doctor. That's a relief. Now all I need to do is rest and return to my flock.
How did you end up in...
I had received alarming news about his recent behavior.
Why did he abduct you?
William was an alcoholic. His addiction suddenly changed to blood. I don't know why. Just like a patient I met here. This Miss Hawcroft.
You dared to enter this awful place alone. You're a hero, Mr. Hampton. Or a fool.
I'm just a man trying to help his friend.
What is the general situation?
The situation has always been tough, with a lot of tensions between the gangs and the Dockers trade union. The Wet Boot Boys are very nervous since they lost their leader.
Who leads the gang?
Since Clay Cox went missing, it's his wife Edwina who runs the show, with the assistance of her minion, Booth.
Has the gang been threatening you?
Ah, no. I've had this nickname for so long, you know, the sad saint of the East End. No one dares to bug a saint, not even criminals.
Do you know Tom Watts, the bartender from the Turtle? I met him before I found you in the canning factory.
Tom? Yes, of course. Always the helping hand, good old Tom. Without men like him, corruption and despair would have wiped.
People are still in...
How could it be otherwise? The authorities have left us all to rot in this contagious nightmare. No drugs.
Who should I avoid in this part of town, then? Any particularly evil figures?
Not really. Most men and women are just doing their best. And it's not my habit to speak ill of...
What do you do for a living, Mr. Hampton? I can't help but notice the cross around your...
I manage a night asylum for the poor and homeless of the docks. And I try to guide the lost and hesitant on the right path to our Lord.
Are you a priest, Mr. Hampton?
Not at all, Doctor. I'm just a man of faith.
Why didn't you use your cross against William?
That's a very strange question, Doctor. A cross is no magical token, if that's what you were trying to say.
How do you feel, Mr. Hampton?
I feel exhausted. Beyond exhaustion, actually. William drank so much of my blood in his madness. I feel...
You're in good hands here. Dr. Swansea is well versed in blood transfusion, and I'm sure...
Thank you, sir. I believe all I need is rest. And then I can go back to the people.
Have you made...
Not really. But I recognize Miss Harriet Jones. I knew her when she lived by the docks. That poor woman.
You never came to see her here at Pembroke? Receiving visits when sick can be an important part of the healing process.
You're preaching to the converted now, Doctor.
Goodbye, Mr. Hampton.
again.
I wonder what your last thoughts.
We are horrific, love.
Good evening, sir.
So it is true. The famous Dr. Reed has joined us. I can't think of any better news during these terrible times.
Do we know each other?
Actually, yes. We met once before.
Dr. Tippett, yes, I remember. I was assisting Professor Carell in his research about coronary bypasses. He had nothing but...
He was also very confident about your future. And look at you now. Eminent surgeon and blood tra...
What is the Pembroke Hospital situation?
This hospital is not exactly the best of London. I'm sure you are used to working in a better...
It's more than enough. In any case, the personnel of a hospital are much more important to me than the building.
Don't be misled by appearances, Dr. Reed. This hospital does not lack talented people.
What can you tell me about...
Some are really good, and others are...
Tell me more about Cherish.
Nurse Brannigan is a pearl. She is the most helpful and dedicated nurse I've ever worked with.
You really seem to admire her skills.
I'll go even further. If she was a man, she would be a...
Any opinion about...
I don't always agree with Dr. Swansea's reserve, but I must admit he does all he can to keep this facility running during this crisis.
Ah, yes, the burden of command. I was fed up with this concept while serving as a medical...
Don't get me wrong. Swansea's a good administrator. I just wish he would get out of his office down again.
You're exhausting yourself, Corcoran. Maybe you should think about preserving your strength.
No. We must keep on healing all those poor souls. We are the last rampart before chaos.
Nurse Brannigan is worried about her.
She should not have told you that.
You don't have to blame her for...
I'm not that kind of man, Mike.
You're
No.
Nurse Brannigan, you don't have... Goodbye, Dr. Tippett. Good evening.
Good evening, Doctor.
Goodbye, Milton. Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Reed. I believe we're...
Reed? Yes, I've been informed about your arrival. I'm Waverly Ackroyd. Welcome aboard.
Does my arrival inconvenience?
Let us just say that I don't particularly share Dr. Swansea's enthusiasm for hiring you. What we need here are reliable professionals.
If you have a problem with me, Dr. Ackroyd, please feel...
Dr. Swansea has imposed your presence on this hospital.
I know we've never met before, but I believe this hospital could use all the help it can get.
Oh, but I have heard about you, Dr. Reed. Of course, you can't say the same about me, since I have not...
Aren't you too old for such jealousy?
Don't be ridiculous, Dr. Reed. A simple glance is enough for me to know you have nothing for me.
Since your tenure in this hospital is longer than mine, perhaps you can tell me more about this place.
Let's just say I'm tired of the carelessness around me. I have always respected the skills of Dr. Swansea, but over time,
Carelessness?
We're here to save lives. The people who trust us are not volunteering for experimentation. They're here to be...
I don't intend to run any radical...
Modern medical methods were created through audacity and ego. But there are rules in our line of work. and they're here to protect our patients.
I don't know what you've heard about me, but I have all...
I don't question your skills, Dr. Reed, but you're...
And what exactly is that supposed to mean?
I served in the war just like you. But unlike you, I did not use the wounded to play the modern...
Be careful what you insinuate, Dr. Ackroyd.
I only want you to admit you used those men to improve your theories.
This is ridiculous. My blood transfusion technique saved many lives, and you know it.
You see? That is exactly what I hate about people like you. You avoid this kind of accusation instead of facing reality.
It seems you have bad...
I refuse to see this industrial slaughter as...
We can at least agree on something. Thank you for your time.
I will not let you down, my boy.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr...
I don't know if a third opinion is needed. Your colleagues are already arguing about...
I see.
I'm Harvey Fiddick. All I want is to get me bloody arm fixed properly.
Tell me about yourself.
I'm just a regular guy waiting to get his arm fixed, so I can return to work. And
I was more curious about what you were doing before.
I'm a carpenter. And a good one, too. But that means I need both arms to feed my...
Tell me about the doctors who are arguing about your case.
Strickland and Ackroyd. They both want the best for me, but there's a lot of pride there. Doctors are no...
What do you mean?
I often had professional arguments with rivals on a building site. Difference is I disagreed about wooden nails, not flesh and bones.
Tell me about yourself.
I'm just a...
I was more...
I'm a...
Are you satisfied with...
Well, it's clear that I've chosen a bad time to be injured. Forgive my bluntness, but you seem over...
I won't lie to you about it.
Are you sure you don't want to operate yourself, Dr. Reed?
In other circumstances, you would be right. But for now, I don't think I can take on the responsibility. Goodbye for now.
My sweet girl. Reads me like a book. Never could keep anything from her.
What can I do for you, Doctor?
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Nurse Crane.
As for me, what a blundering idiot.
Good evening, madam. Can I help you?
It's my son who needs...
I'm Dr. Jonathan Reed.
I'm Beatrice Goswick, mother of Mortimer.
What can you tell me
Not much to say. Just take...
Are you really that rich? Most of the patients here are of a more humble origin, if I may say so.
Yes. Thanks to my husband. May he rest in peace. I can cover any needed medical expenses.
May I ask if...
I'm a teacher by profession. I teach young women who are more ambitious about their futures than their families.
What do you think of your reception here?
I have had the uttermost reservations about this hospital since we arrived. But we had no other choice. Considering the state...
Is there something in particular that's bothering you?
Some of the staff were not especially welcoming. I suspect they're not accustomed to dealing with patients of such...
Goodbye, Mrs. Goswick. Good evening. I'm Dr. Reed.
No,
Really?
I don't want to talk. My throat.
I suppose that this pain is the reason you're here. Is someone taking care of you?
Yes. And no.
Could you at least tell me your name, sir?
Mortimer. Mortimer Goswick.
How painful is your...
So painful I'd rather not.
I'm sure you realize a doctor and his...
Not really.
I see. Then maybe it's...
Yes, maybe. But I don't want to talk.
Why did your mother have you hospitalized here? She seems convinced this is a bad hospital.
My mother just wants the best for me.
Is your mother bothering you? As your doctor, I can ask her to leave you alone if you would prefer.
That's tempting, Doctor. But you have no idea what my mother is capable of. She would tie herself to my bed if you're...
Pembroke Hospital may look unorthodox, but rest assured, you're in good hands here.
It's not me you have to convince, Doctor.
How
So painful, I'd rather...
I'll let you get...
I'm alright. Don't waste your time with me.
Good evening, Doctor.
Tell me more about your arrival at the Pembroke Hospital. What gave you such a bad first impression?
The ambulance driver was quite rude.
What do you mean?
She managed to secure a bed for my son despite the epidemic. It was a relief, but it wasn't cheap.
She charged you for a bed?
Yes, and I paid without question.
I share your concern, Mrs. Goswick. Be sure that I'll talk to the people involved.
I don't expect compensation, Dr. Reed. But I'm aware such behavior would not be tolerated in other hospitals.
Goodbye, Miss.
Reads me like a book. I never could keep anything from her.
I'm quite busy right now.
Thank you for your... Good evening, nurse.
Good evening, Doc.
Goodbye, Nurse Hawkins. Good evening, Dr.
Dr. Reed, any good news?
Goodbye, Dr.
What can I do?
Thank you, Nurse.
Will this shift never end?
It's locked. This must be the place. It's definitely away from prying eyes. Relegated to the shadows. A kingdom of my own. At least I won't be sleeping in a coffin.